Hey, I know you. You're Rebekah Roth. I've read your books and I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you. I've heard that you were a CIA spook. That's not true, is it?
Well, that's quite a question. And it's funny because some 9/11 truthers made that accusation about me about 10 years ago. There's a couple people out there, some guy named Jim Fetzer, college professor, kind of a real conspiracy nut. He claimed that my IP address was pinging out of Langley, Virginia. You know, CIA headquarters? Hardly. I'm a West Coast girl, always have been. So there's another guy on the internet named Kurt Haskell who kind of decided I was an anti-Semite, and he did that with my second novel. And I thought that was just so weird because the guy didn't know me, didn't know anything about me, and he did it before he had time to read that book. It was the accusation came out. He made YouTube videos about me, crazy stuff. And he claimed I was a whole bunch of other different people and I was lying about my age, and he was actually lying about my age. So when I found out that there's a whole bunch of people on the internet that really actually do work for the government, I'm not one of them. Another thing that I noticed is that one of the things that Fetzer attacked me for was he claimed I was never a flight attendant. Well, I can tell you this, he would never find out because the airlines kept all of our information extremely top secret, okay? So that was crazy. And he decided he'd convince all of his followers that I was really on a computer in Langley, Virginia at the CIA headquarters. So absurd. But now if you read the books, and I know a lot of you have, you'll realize that why would I, you know they didn't read them. Why would I tell you that it was an intelligence operation, not a real hijacking, if I were one of them? Wouldn't that be kind of silly? Kind of silly, wouldn't it be? Kind of. But when this Kurt Haskell character decided he would call me an anti-Semite, he got really nasty. I realized that at that point, I had no real idea that Jews were involved, or I just had no idea. At that time, I thought, well, still 19 radical Muslims were doing this. And it didn't make any sense to me. And between those two guys, there was a few more, I thought there must be a reason that people are being called anti-Semite for questioning Building 7 or even talking about the 9/11 story. I was writing novels. And in that second book, which he didn't have time to read when he attacked me, I had created a character, a Jewish woman, and she has a very touching Holocaust story of her grandparents. And I thought, well, that's just not right. So it can't be that. It was a very touching story. Everybody loved it. It can't be that. It must be something about 9/11 that was a threat. And why? How could anybody? I mean, this was just a crazy thing for me. Why would anybody get, well, I always thought anti-Semitism was hating Jews, but I'm beginning to think now that it's Jews hating you. I don't know. I couldn't figure out what it would have to do with 9/11. That was radical Muslims, I was told. So I kept digging and I kept my eye open to find an answer to that. It's funny because a lot of the internet sleuthing that they did in particular, but there was a few others that joined them, they caused my life to be hell, and several other people they claimed were me. So in digging, well, they weren't very accurate. They still aren't, I'm sure. That's why I'm telling you who they are, so you know they're not accurate. But how about this? Why divert from 9/11 to try to say bad, ugly, hateful things about an author of novels? Why? Why would you do that? If you were really interested in the truth about 9/11, what the heck difference would it make what color my hair was, my weight, how long I flew, if I didn't fly? If I was digging into the truth so much that you called me an anti-Semite or claimed that I wasn't a flight attendant, those two things kept me looking. They just kept me looking because it didn't make any sense. And when you do things to me, still to this day, you can ask my husband, if you do stuff that doesn't make any sense, it like rings my bells. I'm like, why are you doing this? It makes no sense. So it happens with Donald Trump. It happens with other people. Why are you doing this? It makes no sense. I'm like a serious common sense. I'm a data person. And so if I can put a puzzle together, then I'm good with it. But if you throw something in there like dog bones, it's not a puzzle piece. I'm going to like, what is this? And what, it's just abnormal. And that's what the anti-Semitism charge from Kurt Haskell was to me. I was like, there must be something here. Why would my airline career threaten Jim Fetzer? Well, I did find out that I read a lot of books about people who actually did work at Langley. And I found out that a lot of people end up getting recruited. Well, the CIA recruits at colleges. They go to the college. Sometimes they just hang out and talk to the professors. And they're looking for somebody that's really straight A student or super physically fit or already trained in martial arts or something like that, athletic. Kind of like a lot of the people that got on as last-minute passengers. And we'll talk about that in another show. And so it's the college professors that help the CIA find these recruits. And they recruit in colleges, not in the airline. Well, they probably did try it in the airline because I did get contacted by someone who was approached by a CIA person prior to 9/11. That was a Delta flight attendant. So, but typically they go to colleges, and in going through all of this stuff and realizing that these people are recruited while they're in college because they're professors. And so I had Judy Woods, who was a professor, Jim Fetzer, crazy stuff. I mean, just crazy stuff. I never talked to Judy Woods. I didn't discredit her information. I don't know why she hated me, but obviously she did. Maybe I was a threat. Maybe because of my inside knowledge, I don't know, of things like hijack protocols. I even had a 9/11 truther come out and say there was no such thing as a hijack protocol. So if those of you are in the airline that are listening to this, I'm sure you're laughing out loud like I just did. There's no such thing as a hijack protocol. Well, yeah, right, sure. Tell me about my job, huh? Okay, so it's interesting that of all the things that they would accuse me of, I think one of them was a chemist. Well, I did take chemistry in college, but my airline career was a huge threat. It's a huge threat to them. And again, I just followed my nose on that one. It's like, okay, then look through everything from the airline employee perspective. And I have to say, and I'll end with this, that it was that airline job that after I did the coast to coast interview, it was that job where other people, and see, you don't know, if you're not in the industry, you don't know this. But if you're in the industry, you do know this. You're all one big family. It doesn't matter if you're with Delta, if you're with American, or with United, Southwest, doesn't matter who you fly for, you're one of us. So when I got contacted about the real passenger manifest, it was because of that family connection. Maybe that was a threat. Maybe somebody knew that. I don't know. But I do know one thing. My career was a huge threat to them. And so it's interesting that when I first started to write Methodical Illusion, the first 3 chapters are pretty much about life in the jet stream, about being a flight attendant. It has nothing to do with 9/11. Just so you know, I could take you to Tokyo and show you what we do when we land. And so I kind of think the first 3 chapters are pretty much just how we meet people that we're going to fly with, because you don't know how we do that. You don't know that I might fly with someone and not see him again for 5 years, and then meet him down on the crew lounge and find out I'm flying to Tokyo with him, or Beijing or someplace. So I kind of wanted to share that with the reader, that inside the airline, how we get to work and how impossible it would be to be kidnapped on the way to work. And that's in the first 3 chapters too, pretty much. Because that was another crazy conspiracy one of these nut jobs were pushing. So I had to wade through a lot of their craziness. I mean, and a lot of them were college professors. I can't remember all their names now, just the ones that attacked me. Their names are on my bathroom wall. I know. It's just that I get reminded, and recently I've been reminded because my publishers received an email about those particular names in particular, that all their accusations about my IP address. I've never lived in Virginia. Actually, I've never lived on the East Coast. So I've never used a VPN, so I'm not pinging from there, Jim. Never have pinged from Langley. Wouldn't know how to get in the door. Everything I wrote in the novels was strictly fiction. It was strictly made up. I don't even know what the front door looks like. Never driven by it. So nice try. I don't know. I could say nice try. But again, it's the behavior of these people that were out there telling people on the internet, writing books and stuff, that they knew everything about 9/11. And they didn't. They didn't know anything at all. But one of the people that contacted me, and this was really the game changer for me. There's 2 things that really were the game changer. I'll just end on that. One of them was the real passenger manifest had no Arab hijackers on board. None. So what was going on, right? And the other thing was when I was contacted by some pilots that had a face-to-face run-in with one of the supposedly dead pilots that crashed on 9/11, and he was still alive. And on those things, I had to grasp what really was going on. Because when I was in that job, I depended on the U.S. military, I depended on air traffic controllers, I depended on pilots, I depended on co-workers, I depended on crew schedulers to sort of have my back, to be there for us if we needed it. If we got hijacked, everything was all set up to go. Yes, there were protocols, and they were supposed to follow them too, but they didn't. So I think that to answer your question, the absurdity of making the accusation that I was a CIA spy just told me that they never read the books, and they've never really listened to a video. Because if I were CIA, why would I tell you, which I'd been doing for a month, 3 weeks anyway, it wasn't a hijacking. There were no hijackers. The pilots are still alive. Why would I tell you that it was an intelligence operation if I were one of them? Well, that would be pretty crazy. I'd lose my pension right there. Probably be dead. That's crazy. So I guess I'll just say that. It's just a crazy question. It's a crazy accusation. Never been to Virginia.